I think the one thing that would perhaps all benefit from around this research is if we could help smooth over the bureaucracy that takes place in universities. So when we mean that, what we mean is the kind of research support that we're giving, the administrative support that surrounds that package, how we can speed up some of the processes, and ultimately how we can, within the boundaries of ethics and everything else that we need to work with, how we can perhaps cut down some of this red tape, which really does slow us down.
Yeah, I think we said a couple of episodes ago that what we could call this podcast is why doesn't that just work? And I think that should be the mantra for higher education, or the slogan for higher education. I think it's not just research offices, it's every single department in universities. It's HR, it's research support, it's funding support, it's workloading, it's everything. I think one thing that we found in the past is that we spend a lot of our time as academics doing this administrative support, which actually is the job of other departments. But because there's so many different departments within a university, it's really difficult to get people to talk to each other, at least in a way that makes sense in terms of a timeline where everyone needs to be talking to each other. So often that gets put on the academic to do that logistical kind of pulling this department to this department and then bringing everything together. Which again is kind of it's time that shouldn't be spent by the academic, really, if we're being honest. But it is stuff that we are asked to do, and again, thinking about how you can do it in terms of your promotion prospects. Can you make that into a learning experience? Can you pull that together as evidence in terms of administrative, academic management, maybe? But yeah, that's in terms of the theme of the actual podcast, in terms of things we would change about academia. For me, I think that would be at the top in terms of the bureaucracy of universities, and thinking about how structures are set up in a way that actually, to an individual academic, so someone who hasn't maybe looked behind the curtain a little bit, can seem that like it's actively getting in your way in terms of you doing your job. And I think that for me is something that's a really big frustration. It's a frustration for a lot of people.
Sure. And it's definitely not that we kind of don't appreciate the help and the guidance, but in some instances, it's just the fact that there's not enough individuals on hand to be doing everything that needs to happen. And I think that one of the reasons that a lot of that gets pushed onto the academic is that, especially in terms of students, but this also kind of maps onto research partners and maybe charities or businesses that we work with, we are the front-facing individuals. And so whenever there's a query, it's easy to send that query to the academic because they're the person that you work with. And then we almost turn into a glorified kind of switchboard almost, where we're redirecting people and we're trying to kind of, make sure the right people are talking to the right people. And sometimes that's really difficult to achieve. Sometimes it's really easy. But I would say that a lot of the time it is kind of chasing people or us trying to find the right person who can answer this problem. And that just drastically slows down the entire system. So maybe there's some sort of education around that. Maybe there's some sort of deeper level training, or we just try and fine tune the entire system, which obviously that's not our area in the slightest. So we can't really advise on that.